Welcome back, my dear passionate crime lovers. This is the history of the American Mafia, the true story of the American Mafia, written and adapted for podcasts by Fabio Fabiano, and translated and read in English by me, Grace Carlisi. I hope you enjoy this new episode. Today we're going to continue the story about Joe Petrosino, and this episode is dedicated to the Italian department. Petrosino at this point was now aware that he was not just a simple employee of the New York Police Department. The policeman felt the responsibility. He had become a celebrity and was probably the most famous Italian American in the USA. The increasing intolerance that the public opinion had for the Italians distressed him. In 1904, he began to work out a plan to stop the growing spread of the criminal activities organized by the Black Hand. He was the first policeman to devise an anti-mafia unit. It was to be a group of very determined detectives without uniforms who were able to anticipate the criminal strategies of the mafia, frame the members, and arrest them. This was his proposal to the police department. Give me about 20 men, active, ambitious, chosen from my people to train into the investigative services. In a few months I will wipe out all the traces of that damn brotherhood from the country. The proposal was made directly to the commissioner of the department, Mr. William McDough, essentially a true New York police chief. He was an Irish immigrant who had been in the USA for 12 years. He was a seasoned politician who had also been a Democratic congressman for New Jersey. He was a lawyer who had worked as a journalist, a shrewd man who knew how to navigate the New York politicians in default that were in the hands of the Irish bigwigs of the Tammany Hall political group. The commissioner immediately disagreed with Petrosino's proposal. For one thing, the majority of the Italians didn't vote, and many of them were not even interested in becoming American citizens. Their only reason for staying in the States was to earn money, and then return to their beloved homeland, Italy. On the other hand, the Irish now made up 90% of the city's population, and therefore the real interest of the chief of police was to guarantee the citizens of the Celtic ethnicities. In that historical period, Italians were considered to belong to a dimension which was separate from the social context. McDough had no interest in defending the Italians who were not even voters and had no intention in assigning police officers to solve their problems. He argued that most Italians had always been against uniforms and against the law and didn't cooperate with the police. The only resolution would be a cultural evolution of the immigrants of the Italian origin. However, Petrosino was convinced that if the Italians were to be given more power and confidence, the situation would change. The city council and politicians sided with the Irish executive, rejecting Petrosino's proposal. But given his growing popularity, the press, increasingly fascinated and taken by the stories about the heroic policeman, supported him with a press campaign in favour of the innovative idea of establishing a nucleus of policemen of Italian origin. Furthermore, Petrosino told the press that if the Black Hand was not stopped, it would soon infiltrate the American society, endangering the entire country. A series of frightening crimes by the Black Hand obliviously intervened, helping Petrosino in the realization of his futuristic plan against McDough's reluctance. Newspapers shouted high-sounding headlines reporting the chronicle of the heinous crimes. On September the 14th, 1904, McDough sent for Petrosino. Once the policeman entered his office, he said to him, "They agreed to your request in the end. You are authorized to initiate an Italian team. You will choose the components yourself." Petrosino didn't get the 20 men he had asked for, but only 5, and then he chose them amongst those from the department, including the man who later would succeed him, Michael Fiaschetti. In addition to the language, the policemen in the new Italian team knew the environments where the Italian crimes took place and the modus operandi of the Black Hand. Their initial working conditions were disastrous. They didn't have an office, so they had to meet in the corridors, and they were mocked by the Irish agents who found the difficulties faced by the new Italian team hilarious. Petrosino decided to open his home to the new team and create a work base there. They kept their archives on a shelf and held team meetings there too. Despite the feverish activity and the new Italian team's hard work, the cases soon multiplied. The increase in crimes was linked to the massive wave of immigrants arriving from Italy. 6 policemen were asked to solve the cases of an area about the size of the city of Rome in 1904, where thousands of police officers and carabinieri were employed. Petrosino asked for and obtained more funds for his Italian squad. MacDo, the commissioner in charge of the department's management, granted the funds to rent a building where the squad could set up a base. Petrosino specifically asked for the new office to be in an area distinct from that of the police station. They rented a space on Waverley Place, a street in what is now known as Manhattan's West Village. They rustled up some desks and furnished the office. They put up a real estate agency sign on the window, which became the cover for the Italian squad headquarters. The members of the squad would leave these offices disguised as Italian unskilled workers with wide-brimmed felt hats and a task assigned by Petrosino. After the initial difficulties due to the ferocity and the infiltration of the Black Hand among the Italian immigrants, the 6 policemen finally began giving out hard blows to the criminals. Petrosino had a young policeman, Rocco Cavone, infiltrate the criminal gangs, managing to obtain useful information on all the members of the Black Hand. At that point, the arrests began. Only those who escaped from New York managed to avoid handcuffs. The public opinion celebrated the 6 policemen and their success. The only ones who didn't cheer them on were their colleagues from the department, who, when they could, also did their best to slow down the work of the Italian squad. Petrosino was convinced that there were some corrupt policemen in the department who were following him, trying to discover and boycott his investigations. To communicate with his men, he avoided using the phone as he didn't trust the lines, and ended up using telegrams. Petrosino, in order to defeat the secret society of the Black Hand, publicly asked for funds to enlist other Italian policemen and get the federal government to intervene. He urged the federal government to put pressure on the Italian government to not grant passports to Italian criminals who attempted to expatriate to the USA. He also asked the United States Congress to approve a law that would have anyone with a criminal record to be sent back to Italy. He turned to the secret services, requesting help and cooperation in the fight against the Black Hand. Meanwhile, Theodore A. Bingham, nicknamed the General, arrived at the head of the police department. He came from the ranks of the army. He was a very dynamic manager, a decisive and direct man, perhaps politically a little naive. Much loved by the cops and the press. When he took office, he made a very strong statement against crime, and the public opinion believed him. Petrosino was very pleased with Bingham, seeing him as a real fighter rather than a politician. The new commissioner's first directives particularly pleased the Italian-American policemen. One of the most impactful determined the continuous surveillance of the head members of the Black Hand. He also introduced a promotion to first-class detective for all policemen who were able to find evidence against the Italian criminals. However, 4 years after the establishment of the Italian squad, some very critical articles appeared in the local newspapers that accused the New York Police Department of not having been able to eradicate the Black Hand. In truth, the criticism was spurious and unfair. The team had actually achieved very important results. In November, the policeman had found 19 bombs at a Long Island home. 3 days later, Petrosino had arrested a serial child kidnapper in East Harlem. The detectives of the Italian team were tireless. General Bingham at that point started a media campaign in which he claimed that he wanted to set up a secret service to eradicate the plague of the Black Hand permanently. Petrosino didn't like this project and was aware of the possibility of not finding investigators who would infiltrate the gangs of the Black Hand. Bingham's press campaign had its effects, and some wealthy entrepreneurs put their hands in their pockets and financed the former general's activities. As expected, no one showed up to be enlisted as a Secret Service agent. Therefore, Bingham appointed Petrosino as head of the department. But the money collected using this pretext was to be put forward to another plan, and Petrosino was once again to play the main role in it. But I will tell you all about that story in my next episode. The Italian department was renamed the Italian Legion and was reinforced with 30 men. The town hall rejected the project, so the organization was funded by private citizens. $30,000 were collected for the first year of operation. Petrosino was promoted to lieutenant, and President Theodore Roosevelt awarded him with a Medal of Valor for his accomplished operations against criminal gangs, with 500 arrests and 2,500 expulsions from the country. Petrosino celebrated his promotion with some colleagues in Vincent Saulino's restaurant, where he used to have lunch and dinner almost every day. Saulino and his 37-year-old widowed daughter, Adelina, ran the place. Petrosino and Adelina had long since started a friendly relationship, and it was said that on that occasion Petrosino, after a few glasses of wine, got down on his knee and proposed to her. The wedding was celebrated on April the 7th in 1907 in the old church of St. Patrick's on Mott Street. The entire Italian Legion, as well as the police chief Bingham, found themselves celebrating the couple. Lunch was clearly offered by the bride's father. The couple later drove to their 4-room apartment at 233 Lafayette Street, but there was no honeymoon for the newlyweds. Petrosino the next day went to the office to continue his investigations.